I'm Nat Borchers, and this is PTFC Driven, presented by Toyota. We are interviewing Thorns and Timbers players to talk about adversity in their soccer careers. In this installment, we interview Becky Sauerbrunn, two-time Women's World Cup champion and Portland Thorns center back. Becky talks to us about the difficulties she had breaking in with the U.S. women's national team as a young player. Here is our chat with Becky. I want to go back in time with you, if we could, and talk about one that was meaningful for you. And I think we have to go back a little bit in time to your time with Pia Sundhage.
Yeah, so Pia Sundhage became the coach in 2008, and her first cap coaching was also my first cap playing. And so really exciting. This is my first time with the national team, new coach, clean slate, just super excited to actually be like living my dream because I'd always wanted to be on the national team. Like I've been a baby of the national team program, like kind of just each level I've played on and had kept leveling up. And so finally I get to the senior team, just living my dream. And Pia brings me in after the tournament. The tournament was in China, got to play against Canada and China. She brings me in the next training camp and was just like, yeah, we just don't think you are the type of center back that we need at this point. And I mean, I've always known I've played center back differently from my peers at that point. And so I know what Pia wanted, and I wasn't that type of player. That wasn't my identity. And so she wanted to put me back with the 23s and just develop more and add more skills to the old toolbox and everything. And it was crushing, absolutely crushing. You know, you live your dream and you finally make it, and then you kind of have it just snatched away from you pretty quickly. You know, you get a breath of it and then it's gone. And so I was out of the scene, the national team scene, for about 2.5 years. And it was a time that I call like in the wilderness. But it was very, very tough. And you talk about an athlete's willingness to persevere and kind of chase their dream. Like for me, that was the time.
Yeah, and you go back to that moment, Becky, where, I mean, as a center back myself, when you're told that you don't have it, you don't have the goods, what's in the toolkit to be successful, that's unbelievably hard. Can you bring us back to that moment and just tell us, when you got the news, you know, what was your first reaction?
Oh, when Pia was talking to me, it was, do not cry in front of her. Like, do not break down. Like, listen to the feedback. Like, internalize it. Make sure you memorize every single thing that she just told you, because you're going to be working your ass off on it. And then immediately following that, I had to go talk to the team GM to get my flight done to immediately go to the 23s who were going to Spain. So I had like no time to really kind of just woe is me. I was going straight to the 23s. And so I broke down in front of the GM at the time. It was Cheryl Bailey, and she's probably seen it so many times, and she was just trying to console me, but it was like crushing.
And when you went through that process, you get the news, you know, you're going to be going back to play with the 23s, you're taking a step down. Who do you go to in that moment of time to you know, get perspective? Or did you just internalize it yourself? You said you listen to the words, which is amazing. You listen to everything she said, but you're also just kind of like breaking up inside. So who did you go to at that moment in time to get help?
The first person I talked to was Zola, my boyfriend, who you know, but I've been with him since college. So like 14 years now. So like he knows, he's like seen the best and the absolute worst. And this was like close to the absolute worst as far as soccer. So he was someone that I talked to immediately. And then also my University of Virginia head coach, Steve Swanson, who has been a mentor and a friend for me since I was like 15. He was the next person that I talked to.
That's awesome. And what was the feedback that Zola and Steve gave you? Was there any takeaways for you in terms of those conversations?
Yeah, it was basically like, welcome to the world of elite athletics. Like, you're on a roller coaster of a ride of a career, and you're going to have to ride the highs and the lows. And right now, like, how are you going to respond to this? Are you going to crumble and stop playing well enough to actually stay relevant? Are you going to buck up and you're going to put your head down and you do the work to get yourself back into the picture? And so I clearly chose the second option. But it was a little bit of tough love, and I really appreciated that about them.
And that's awesome. You were able to get that kind of feedback from those you love. I think that's so important as an athlete to have people you trust who can give you that feedback in a time of need. And so going through that process, you go down to the 23s. How long did it take you to, did you have poor performances subsequent to that, or were you able to raise your game that much higher when you went down with them?
It was, since I had played with the senior team, I had gotten a little bit used to the pace. And so when I went back with the 23s, I was kind of on that probably upper tier where I was playing a little bit faster. I was seeing a little bit things faster. So I was doing good. I was okay with the 23s. And then luckily the WPS started. And so that was really the platform that I got to use to kind of play my way back into relevancy. And so I think without the WPS, I probably never would have made it back.
So you're able to get some games there. You're able to kind of just make sure that you maintain that confidence level, right? And then, so process-wise, how long did it take you to get back a call up and get back into the national team?
It took me about 2.5 years, I would say. And even when I did get called back in, I remember this so distinctly. I was outside a movie theater. I had just finished my second season in the WPS. We had lost in the semifinals against Philadelphia. And so season's done. I'm going into the town with Sola, and I see a strange number on my phone, left a voicemail, and I was like, I'll just listen to it later. And Sola's like, no, you should listen to it now. So I listened to it. It's Pia. And she's like, hey, there's been an injury in camp. Would you want to come in as an alternate? Nothing's guaranteed. You would just come in and play, and kind of we'll see what happens. And so I called back immediately and was like, yes, gave me my flight. I was there the next day.
Hell yeah. And during that time, that 2.5 years where you're on the outside looking in, how much did it kind of fuel your fire? Did it stoke that fire in terms of you were watching other people play, a position that you obviously felt you were good enough to play? What was that like?
Oh my, there's so many highs and lows. I mean, there'd be times where, I'm playing against my national team players almost week in and week out. So I have an Abby Wambach on my team. I have Kat Whitehill. So I have these players that played on the national team. And, you're training against them, you're playing against world-class players, and you're like, I'm doing good. I feel like I'm training well, I'm performing well in these games. What else do I need to do? And I remember one game specifically where I'm playing against Marta. And this was at the time when Marta was at the height of her ability. Okay. So she's just dribbling around people like they're cones. And we're playing her LA team. And I have probably the best defensive game in my career. I'm doing bicycle kicks, on the goal line, saving goals. I'm one-on-one with Marta, and I shut her down. And I know, I find out later that Pia was at the game, and because I see her walking across the field at the end. And I'm just she doesn't say anything to me, doesn't even make eye contact. And I'm just thinking, if she can't see anything in me after I put in that performance, I'm never going to make it back. And so there were just, highs and lows that you just always go through. But I remember that game so specifically.
That's incredible. And what year was that?
That one was probably 2010. And I got called in at the end of that season. So hopefully I did something right in that game that she saw it.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. And you've obviously, come a long way since then, over 100 caps, two Women's World Cup championships, trip to the Olympics as well with a gold medal. I'm curious, were you able to, when you got back into camp and you put on that jersey, what was that feeling like to get in and just know that you had broken in with Pia?
I mean, it took a while for me to actually get the jersey. I came into camp right before we went to World Cup qualifying in Mexico, and didn't really dress for a lot of the games, maybe got 10 minutes in one game. And so I really was still kind of on the bubble. It was a miracle I had even made the Olympic roster. That was a surprise. And so it took a really long time for Pia, I think, to trust me on the field. And I think slowly, kind of like a slow burn, it slowly started to attach and to make sense to me for her to put me on the field a little bit more. And even then with Pia, I rarely played.
Right. That's incredible. And I'm curious if there's a younger player who's watching this and talking about the process. I mean, you went, from obviously being on the outside, looking in, having good performances, obviously, but it's 2.5 years it takes you from getting into the camp, being told you're not good enough, getting out, being hungry to get back in, then you get back in, and you obviously elevated from there. What would you tell a younger player who would be watching this about what you need to do to persevere through all that?
I would say it takes a lot of hard work. Like, always know where your compass needs to point. Like, what are you doing, and is it helping you to attain that goal that you're set for yourself? I would say, like, ride the roller coaster. Like, don't get too high, don't get too low. I mean, it really, like, you never know when it's going to dip and you never know when it's going to rise. And I mean, through that time, I would say, like, surround yourself with people that understand you and understand your goals and will help you and support you and aid you in reaching those goals.
It's fantastic advice. Becky, really appreciate your time. So glad that you are with us here with the Portland Thorns now, and can't wait to see you on the pitch once we get going again.
Yeah, me too.